Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're heading straight into the operating theater.
We really are. It's a heavy one today.
Yeah, it is. We're breaking down a really fascinating surgical anatomy presentation. It's titled HCC 1475 10-meter Surgical Anatomy Proctocolectomy. And this comes directly from the YouTube channel of Dr. Gaudamakala S. Raju.
Right. And we really have to acknowledge Dr. Raju's work right off the bat here. The visual guide he provides in that presentation is just incredible for understanding what is a very, very complex procedure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because just to set the stage for you listening, we are not talking about a routine appendectomy here.
No, not at all.
This is major life-altering reconstruction. The term is total proctocolectomy.
Which is quite a mouthful.
It is, yeah. But the surgery itself is this amazing feat of medical engineering that quite literally rearranges human plumbing to save a patient's life.
It's one of those procedures that sits right at this crazy intersection of radical resection, removing massive amounts of tissue.
Yeah.
And then, on the flip side, incredibly delicate bioengineering to put it all back together so the patient can actually function.
Exactly. And looking at Dr. Raju's presentation, the stakes are established immediately. We're dealing with patient profiles where their own colon has essentially become a massive liability.
A ticking time bomb in some cases.
Yeah. The source specifically highlights patients with severe ulcerative colitis, where it stopped responding to medical management entirely.
Right, the inflammation is just out of control.
And the other major group mentioned is patients with familial adenomatous polyposis, or FAP for short.
And that's a crucial distinction, I think, from just general colorectal cancer risk.
Cool.
Well, with FAP, we're talking about a genetic condition. So the development of cancer isn't just a possibility, it's almost a mathematical certainty if the colon remains in the body.
Wow.
Yeah, you're looking at hundreds, sometimes thousands of polyps lining the colon.
So the mission here for the surgeons isn't just treating a disease, it's preventative elimination.
Completely. You have to remove the threat entirely.
But the trade-off for the patient is massive. Our goal today is to understand exactly what gets removed, why it gets removed, and really the ingenious ways surgeons reconstruct the digestive tract.
Because you want the patient to live a normal life afterward.
Right. So let's start with the removal phase, visualizing the resection.
Okay.
Dr. Raju walks us through the normal anatomy versus the extent of the resection. And I think we need to clarify what total proctocolectomy actually means.
It's essentially the removal of the entire the large intestine.
The whole thing.
The whole thing, and the rectum.
That's the body's entire waste processing and storage facility just gone in one go.
Right. But, and this is a really crucial detail from the source presentation, there is a hard stop line.
They don't take everything down there.
No. The anal canal is preserved.
Okay, the anal canal, why is that distinction so important?
Because the anal canal contains the sphincter muscles, the dissection goes incredibly deep into the pelvis, right down to the pelvic floor. But the surgeons are meticulously preserving those anal sphincters.
Because that's what gives us control.
Exactly. It allows for social continence, the ability to choose when you go to the bathroom. If you damage those muscles or remove them, the options for reconstruction change completely.
You lose the option for a natural exit, basically.
Right. But assuming the surgeon achieves that clean resection and saves the anal canal, we're left with this massive void.
An immediate physiological problem.
Yeah, you've got the terminal ileum, the very end of the small intestine just kind of hanging there.
And nowhere for the waste to be stored or processed.
Right, because the small intestine is designed for continuous flow. It absorbs nutrients, but it doesn't store waste like the colon and rectum do.
So this leads us to the reconstruction phase. You remove the hardware designed to provide a high quality of life.
Yeah.
How do you get it back?
Well, the presentation outlines a couple of main paths. And the first one is the exit strategy that most people might be somewhat familiar with.
Option 1.
Yeah.
The ileostomy.
Exactly. Taking that terminal ileum and bringing it out through the anterior abdominal wall.
Right, creating a stoma on the stomach.
Yes. But the mechanics are really interesting. You don't just cut a hole and stick the tube through.
Oh, really?
No, the output from the small intestine is very different from large intestine waste. It's rich in digestive enzymes. It's actually quite caustic.
Ah, so it would damage the skin.
Severely. It would digest the skin if it sat flush against it. So the surgeon has to avert the bowel. They literally turn it inside out, like rolling down a sock, to create a spout.
Okay, I see.
That spout directs the effluent safely away from the skin and directly into the external collection method, the ileostomy bag.
Now, the source material also mentions an interesting variant of this. an ileostomy with a reservoir.
Right. This is a fascinating step in the evolution of these surgeries.
Because they're building a storage tank before the exit point, right,
Okay.
inside the body.
Yes. It's often called a cock pouch. The surgeons take a segment of the small intestine inside the abdomen and sew it into an internal pouch.
Okay.
And then they create this ingenious little nipple valve out of the intestine tissue itself.
A biological valve.
Exactly. And that valve stays shut dramatically, so it holds the waste inside that internal reservoir.
So the patient doesn't have to wear an external bag all the time.
Right. No continuous bag. They just insert a small catheter through the stoma a few times a day to empty the reservoir.
Wow. That seems like a huge quality of life upgrade.
It was a revolutionary idea, but mechanically it's very complex. Valves can slip, the pouches can leak, it has a high complication rate.
Which makes sense. You're asking a piece of intestine to act as a high-pressure valve.
Exactly, which is why, for patients who are eligible, the gold standard has really shifted to the second option described in Dr. Raju's presentation.
Option 2, the no-bag alternative,
The J pouch, or technically the ileal pouch anal anastomosis.
IPA.
Right.
This is for patients who explicitly, as the source says, do not want to have an ileostomy bag. And this is where the engineering gets really wild to me.
It is wild. You're completely rerouting the plumbing.
Because instead of bringing the small intestine out through the stomach wall, they pull it all the way down into the pelvis.
Yes. But you can't just connect the small intestine directly to the preserved anal canal.
Why not? Just a straight connection.
They used to do that, actually, a straight pull-through. The problem is the small intestine has very active peristalsis. It's constantly squeezing to push things along.
Oh, so just immediately push waste out?
Right. Patients would have terrible urgency. They'd be going to the bathroom 15, 20 times a day.
That's not a solution at all.
No. So you need volume. You need a reservoir to act like the rectum that was removed. So the surgeon creates a pouch.
The J pouch.
Yes. They take the very end of the ileum, fold it back on itself to form a J shape.
Okay, folding it like a hairpin.
Exactly. And then they use linear staplers to essentially merge those two limbs of the J together.
So they cut the dividing wall between the two tubes and staple the outside edges all at once.
You got it. Creating one large, common channel, a double-width reservoir.
That's incredibly clever.
It is. It doubles the holding capacity, but the real genius is that it interrupts that peristalsis we just talked about.
How does it do that?
Because the two segments of intestine are facing opposite directions now, their natural muscle contractions sort of fire against each other. They cancel each other out.
Wow. Biological cancellation.
Exactly. It creates a static reservoir out of active tissue.
So you built this new rectum out of small intestine. Now comes the connection part. The ileoanal anastomosis.
Hook up.
Yeah. Hooking the bottom of that new J pouch directly to the top of the preserved anal canal.
Right. And getting that pouch to reach all the way down deep into the pelvis is often the most stressful part of the surgery.
Because it's tethered by its blood supply, right?
Yes, the superior mesenteric artery. If you stretch the tissue too far, you cut off the blood supply and the pouch dies. Ischemia.
Oh, wow.
But if you don't stretch it enough, it literally won't reach the anal canal for the connection. It's a high-stakes geometry problem.
But assuming the reach is good, and they make the connection, it essentially repurposes the small intestine to allow for bowel movements through the natural route.
That's the ultimate goal, yes.
But, and this is a massive but, in the source material, there is a major safety mechanism built into this process, a temporary step.
Yes. The surgeon's biggest concern right after making that connection down in the pelvis is healing.
The anastomosis.
Right. You have a fresh staple line, deep in a dark, moist area. If that connection leaks, what we call an anastomotic leak, it causes severe pelvic sepsis.
Which is incredibly dangerous.
Life-threatening.
Right.
And it can completely destroy the function of the sphincter muscles they worked so hard to preserve. Plus the risk of adhesions, where scar tissue binds organs together unnaturally.
So to mitigate that risk, they use a two-stage approach.
Yes. Even though the entire goal is a no-bag solution, the surgeon almost always creates protective ileostomy initially.
A temporary bag.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
usually a loop ileostomy.
Okay, break that down for us. What's the difference between this and the permanent endoileostomy we talked about earlier?
Well, in an end ileostomy, the bowel is completely cut and the end is brought out. In a loop ileostomy, the bowel is technically still a continuous tube.
Okay.
They just pull a loop of the small intestine upstream from the newly created J pouch out through the skin. They make a small opening in the side of that loop so the waste falls into the bag.
It's like a detour sign on a highway.
That's exactly what it is. It diverts 100% of the fecal stream away from the new J pouch.
So the J pouch is just sitting down there empty.
Empty, clean, and resting. It gives the wound time to heal without being pressurized by gas or stool passing through it.
Okay, so the patient wakes up from this massive surgery. They have a temporary bag. How long are we talking before the final restoration?
Typically, you're looking at 8 to 12 weeks.
2 to 3 months.
Yeah, and during that time, the swelling goes down, the staple lines heal, and incredibly, the lining of the pouch actually starts to adapt.
I was going to ask about that. Because the small intestine is meant to absorb nutrients, now it's being asked to store waste. Does the tissue itself change?
It absolutely does. It goes through a process called colonic metaplasia.
Metaplasia.
Yeah. The tiny finger-like projections in the small intestine that absorb nutrients, the villi, they actually start to flatten out.
Really?
Yes. The mucosal lining transforms to look and act more like the lining of the colon. The body somehow senses the change in function and adapts its own cellular architecture.
It's just the resilience of the human body is unbelievable.
It's amazing plasticity.
Wow.
Now, it never becomes a true perfect rectum.
Right, let's be clear about the outcomes here. When the source says patients can pass bowel movements naturally, it doesn't mean it's exactly like it was before they got sick.
No, you have to manage expectations. A highly successful J-couch patient might still go to the bathroom 4 to 6 times a day.
Because they still don't have a colon to absorb all that water.
Exactly. So the output is looser, and there's also a risk of something called pouchitis.
Inflammation of the pouch.
Right. Since the small intestine isn't naturally designed to handle the heavy bacterial load of stored stool, it can get inflamed. It's treatable with antibiotics, usually, but it's a chronic thing to monitor.
It's a biological spare part, essentially. It works brilliantly, but it needs maintenance.
Well said.
So, fast forward those 3 months, the anastomosis is completely healed. What's the final step?
The surgical team will usually do a contrast study first. They inject a special dye into the pouch from below and take an X-ray to prove absolutely that there are no leaks.
Gotta be watertight.
Precisely. If it looks good, they schedule the takedown surgery.
The closure of the temporary ileostomy.
Right. And this is a much smaller operation. They just free that loop of intestine from the abdominal wall, sew the small hole shut, and drop it back inside.
The detour is removed.
The detour is gone. The flow is completely restored down to the J pouch.
And for the patient, this means finally passing bowel movements through the anal canal.
Yeah.
Without the need for a bag.
Which psychologically is just massive.
I can't even imagine. The presentation says, without the need for keeping a bag on, and it just feels like such an understatement.
Oh, totally. Think about a young person, maybe 25 years old, with FAP. They've been living with the terrifying certainty of getting colon cancer. They go through this radical surgery, and at the end of it, not only is the cancer risk eliminated, but their body image is preserved. They can go swimming, wear normal clothes, and nobody would ever know they had their entire large intestine removed.
It hides the disability. It restores a massive degree of normalcy to their lives.
It does. The technical complexity we saw in Dr. Raju's slides, the stapling, the routing, the blood supply management, all of that intense engineering serves one incredibly simple goal: normalcy.
Let's zoom out for a second to summarize this journey. Because we've gone from a devastating diagnosis, severe UC or FAP, to the radical removal of the colon and rectum.
Right.
And finally, to these really intense reconstruction choices. Bag versus J-pouch. Internal reservoirs versus external appliances. What does all of this tell you about the state of this field?
I think it tells us that we've firmly moved past this era of just, cutting out the bad part and leaving the patient to deal with the consequences.
Right. Survival isn't enough anymore.
Exactly. We are in the era of functional restoration. The expectation is that the surgery shouldn't just save the patient's life, it should save their lifestyle.
And it really highlights the modularity of our biology.
Yeah, the redundancy.
Taking a midsection of your digestive tract, folding it up, stapling it together, and teaching it to perform the job of the end section, that spare part strategy is mind-blowing.
It proves we're built with a lot of backup potential.
It does make you wonder about the future, though. I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought to mull over.
Okay.
Right now, this surgery is incredible, but it is essentially rearranging the existing furniture.
Yeah.
We're taking tissue from one place and forcing it to work in another. But with how fast bioengineering is advancing.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Like, will there come a day when we stop building J-pouches out of the ileum and instead we just grow a bioartificial rectum in a lab?
Using the patient's own stem cells, maybe?
Exactly. or using scaffold technology to regenerate an actual colonic lining so they don't get pouchitis.
So instead of being biological plumbers, surgeons become biological architects.
Yes, moving from repurposing parts to actually replacing them with custom-grown upgrades. It's not as far off as it sounds.
It's a fascinating thought. Though for now, the J-pouch remains this absolute gold standard of surgical ingenuity. It's a mechanical solution to a biological problem, and it works for thousands of people.
It's a genuinely incredible journey to follow. A huge thank you to Dr. Raju for the detailed presentation that let us visualize all of this today.
Yeah, seeing the logic of the staple lines in the anatomy really demystifies the whole process.
It does. And thank you to everyone listening. We know total proctocolectomy is a heavy, intense topic.
Very intense.
But understanding the lengths we can go to rebuild ourselves, to restore normalcy after disease, I think that's fundamentally optimistic.
Keep asking questions, everyone. Stay curious.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.